He thought the dog wanted the food. That assumption would take 4 days and one emergency room visit to correct. The golden retriever's name was Clover, and she was, by any honest assessment, a food-motivated dog. 7 years old, still enthusiastic at mealtimes, trained to sit at the kitchen perimeter during meals, but not always successful at the sitting part. So when Clover began pressing against the high chair tray during baby Marin's lunches, her father, Gavin, corrected her. Clover, back. And Clover would go back, and by the next bite, she was at the tray again. Marin was 11 months old. She had just started solids: banana, sweet potato, soft-cooked carrot. The stage 2 progression her pediatrician had outlined at her 9-month appointment. She thought everything was wonderful. She laughed at the food. She laughed at the spoon. She laughed at Clover, which did not help with the behavior. The first day, Gavin corrected the dog 4 times during lunch. The second day, Clover changed her behavior slightly. Instead, she stood beside the high chair with her nose raised toward the tray level, not reaching, not begging, but inhaling, slowly, in the direction of whatever Marin was eating. This still looked like begging. It was not begging. Gavin's wife, Theo, watched it on the second afternoon and said, "She's never been this interested in baby food before." She said it in an observational way, not a concerned way, and Gavin agreed, in an observational way. And neither of them did anything with the observation, because it fit inside the existing explanation, and so it stayed there. On the third day, Marin's lunch included mashed chickpeas, a new introduction. She had eaten half the portion when Clover did something she had never done in 7 years. Once, sharp, the kind of sound that stops a room, Marin burst out laughing. Gavin said, "Clover, out." Clover went to the kitchen doorway. She did not go to her bed. She stood in the doorway and watched Marin eat the rest of the chickpeas with an attention that was not the attention of a dog watching food. It was the attention of a dog watching something she couldn't stop and couldn't explain and was running out of ways to interrupt. If you stay for stories about what animals know before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. That night, Marin was fussy. Not dramatically, the low-grade unhappy of an infant who is slightly uncomfortable and cannot say so. Gavin held her for an hour and she settled. In the morning, she had a patch of redness on her cheek that Theo photographed and sent to the pediatrician. Eczema flare, the nurse messaged back. Completely normal, with new food, introductions. Keep a food diary, note anything new. Theo wrote chickpeas in the notes app on her phone. The next afternoon was lunch again. Soft-cooked lentils this time. Different enough from chickpeas that neither of them made the connection. Clover came to the kitchen before lunch was even on the tray. She positioned herself beside the high chair and did something Gavin had never seen her do. She pushed her nose under Marin's forearm from below, lifting it gently. Marin laughed. Gavin removed her to the hallway. He closed the hallway door. He heard her sit down on the other side of it and press her nose to the gap at the floor. 20 minutes after lunch, Marin's cheek was red. Her left eye looked puffy. She was rubbing at her face with a fist in the particular way that Theo had seen once before in a child she babysat, who later turned out to have severe allergies, Theo called the pediatrician. The pediatric allergist, Dr. Renata Vasquez, saw Marin 3 days later. The scratch test confirmed what the food diary had begun to suggest. Marin had a developing allergy to legumes. chickpeas, lentils, and several related proteins, a category that in some children presents initially with mild skin response and escalates with repeated exposure. Repeated exposure. They had fed her the same protein family on 4 consecutive days. The 5th day would have been a larger exposure. The 6th might have crossed into systemic reaction. Has your dog ever done something around meal times that felt like one thing and turned out to be something else entirely? Tell us in the comments. These stories matter. Dr. Vasquez asked, as allergists do, how they had identified the pattern. Theo showed her the Notes app, chickpeas, lentils, the timing, the redness. Then she mentioned clover. Dr. Vasquez was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "There is documented research on dogs detecting allergen compounds in food through volatile chemical signatures. A dog with a sensitive nose, repeatedly present at mealtimes with an infant eating allergenic proteins, would potentially register a change in the infant's skin and breath chemistry beginning with the first exposure, well before the parent could observe symptoms." She looked at Theo. If the dog was alerting, she said, she was the first one who knew. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who were put in the hallway and came back anyway. Marin's diet is now carefully managed. She carries an epinephrine autoinjector. Her legume allergy remains significant. Clover sits beside the high chair at every meal. Not begging. Not reaching. Just present, nose raised slightly toward the tray, doing the job she never asked for and never stopped doing even when they kept correcting her. Subscribe so you never miss the next one, because next time, the dog didn't bark once. She stayed completely silent, and that silence was the alarm.